HAJIME, Inside USA Judo's interview series. I'm Hannah Martin, your host, and I'm happy to welcome two-time Olympic bronze medalist Israel Hernandez. He's also the head coach of the USA Judo National Resident Team program. Sorry, it's a lot to say. So yeah, welcome. I'm happy to speak with you and have this conversation with you today. So how are you doing? How's everything going?
Well, thank you, Hannah, for the invitation for this interview. It's a lot of things to talk. So it's good to have this opportunity that you and your program Hajime is inviting me to know about me and to talk about what is our new approach in seeing forward for 2028 Olympic
Yeah.
and the USA Judo as a country, as an organization. What is the outcome coming from me, for the group of coach that we're working to put this athlete in the right position at
Mhm.
that Olympic. But it's a road that we have to start walking.
Yeah.
Uh, but thank you for the invitation. So I'm totally open to any question or anything like that. So thank you so much, Hannah.
Yeah, well, thank you for your time. So I'm just gonna start, kind of we're gonna go back a little bit. Like I want to hear about your roots. So, I remember you from when I was competing. You usually were always like coaching against me, if you remember. But before you were a coach, you were an athlete and you're a two-time Olympic bronze medalist, also Pan American champion. I think I was looking in your profile like maybe five times. I might be incorrect, but also yes. So you have multiple medals internationally, two Olympic medals. So let's just go back to this first, and how did you like discover judo? Like when did it all start?
And look, I came to you by accident. I have my mom have a brother that he is into drink a lot. And then, for when I was little, I was in the neighborhood, having like a really bad friend and everything like that. My mom told my uncle to put me in karate,
Karate.
right? In karate. Then he went with me, hey, nephew go with me, and he bring me to this place. There's a lot of kids, doing something like that. And then he put me right there. I see signing me up. And I did that for 1 week. My mom asked me, hey, how you karate class going and everything like that? I said, hey mom, I'm not in karate. I do in judo. My mom get mad. She grabbed me and she walked with me all the way to my uncle's house, and she told him a lot of things. I told you put my son in karate. I don't know what is judo and all the things like that. What you doing with him? And then my uncle said, I don't know. I just go over there and I see a bunch of kids with a little white batita, a little white thing with a lot of color in a little thing on the waist with little colors. And for me, that was karate. Now, if he say that is judo, I don't care. I don't know.
Yeah.
But for me, that was karate. I go by accident. But then my mom asked me, "You like it?" I really enjoy it. I really enjoy it. That was the way I was in judo.
Wow, that's really funny. So it was really supposed to be karate and that's funny. And how old were you? Do you remember how old you were when
Okay, I'm 56 years old.
so
When I started judo,
no, no, no. How old were you when you started?
I'm
Yeah.
9 years old. 9 years old.
Nine. Oh, cool. That's awesome. So, obviously you started judo in Cuba and you represented the Cuban team. So, yeah, just tell me a little bit about like, growing up in the Cuban system and then, competing at the Olympic Games, like back-to-back Olympic medals.
Because a Cuban system it's just like a screen, basically it's a filter. Back in the time, it's not wasn't easy to do the sport that you like if you don't have the condition of the ability to perform at that sport. They constantly test any kids to go to any sport. They constantly test you, and
Hmm.
if you don't pass the test for that sport, you're not allowed to practice the sport. It was rude, it was hard, but they tell you, okay, you not have a condition for this sport. You have to practice another sport. I had when I do judo, but I was skinny. I was skinny, not too strong, but I have it like a, the technique. It was good. I have a that strong desire to fight and everything like that. I assume for those aspects, probably they allow me continue doing judo. Otherwise, I don't know what kind of sport.
Yeah.
Maybe no, because I was more. I go more to the artistic way
Okay.
to like also science way. I like science. And my mom is a doctor, and my mom family they like more a medic,
Hmm.
doctor, nurse, and all the thing like that. That's my mom's side, and I always like that way. But in judo, I wasn't that talented kid. I have another characteristic, but now you see me as in my beginning, I was just okay athlete. That was my initial in judo. Plus, the system was really hard to practice
Hmm.
because they want the best that practice the sport that you are practicing. That doesn't matter. It was wrestling, boxing, judo, karate, or any other sport. Every year, you have to develop. Otherwise, they kick you out of the program. Even I'm talking about a low level.
Wow.
It's a low level.
Yeah.
Of course, by the time you continue competing at your local level, you go to when you get good and you city. Every city and those times they have a some sports school. The best student of that city go to that school. That's only for sport. That you study, and then when you finish the school, you have to do sport. After that, you go. Every state have a school for sports. So the best kid in every sport for that state had to go to that school. And I navigate onto that school, and I've been there for 4 years. And then that meaning every state had a school, and then they have it they call the National Sport School, right? So the best kids from the nation go to that school, and from there is when the Olympic Training Center is allowed to pick athletes from that school, not all the way around. So I couldn't go to that national school, right? I stay in my state, and for some disciplinary issue that I did, I was to compete in the national. They call it the U national, right? I had to compete. I make it the thing on my state and everything like that. But one day they're going to do a tryout for some category, not for my category. And I decide not to go to the training. I have a girlfriend, and we go to see a movie in the theater.
Ooh.
And I was into the training that day. The day after, when I go to the training, they say, "Hey, you are kicked out of the team because you're not coming to training today." They kicked me out, and I didn't go to. That was the best year for me and the best year for my state team and in the national. Everybody get gold medal. It was exciting. So all these members of the team, they was moving to the national school, sports school. I been kicked out, and I go to my state. I decide that was 17 years old. I decided not to do judo anymore. I
Okay.
was ready. I cry a lot. And, I was in that moment of my life that I said, man, I lose my opportunity and everything. I left judo for almost 6 months, and I applied for the med school to start. I want to be a neurosurgeon.
A
Is a
neurosurgeon. Hmm. Yeah. So to do like the surgery in the brain. Yeah.
right. I decided to do that. I forget about judo. I applied for med school. I was accepted, and I studying over there. Right.
Wow.
6 months after that, one of the coach that kicked me out, he approached me and said, "Hey, I want you to training again because there is a tryout. The first three athletes who win this tryout, they're going to be moving to the national team." the Olympic Training Center. And I say, I don't want to do it. I'm really upset with judo. I want to continue to do my sport, my doctor career. I don't want to do that anymore. And he told me, give me a year training. Well, I come back in 3 months. I was good. I go to the tryout and I win the tryout. The best athlete, the Cuba and 55 kilo was, and I beat everybody.
Hmm.
And they put me to the National Training Center. That was when I go to the Olympic training side, right? But I would say at the beginning, I never was a national champion in Cuba,
Hmm.
and I never was, in the juvenile cadet. I never win any of those national tournaments. I become the team.
Yeah.
I was in the team. I go to the tournament. It was a lot of kid way better than me. Way Hannah, technically, aggressively, way better than me. Right? I going to say that I have a talent, but one thing that I have in me, it was the discipline.
Hmm.
I never, even when I fail, even when I feel like that, I never retreat. I never feel like I was enough. I always want more than I was. I have that competitive mentality.
Yeah.
You go beside me and you do 10, I want to do 11. If you throw by Yuko, I want to throw by Wasari. That was me and as an athlete, right? I think that pushed me more than those talented athletes. You can have the talent.
Hmm.
That's what I said. You can be a talented person, but you don't have the desire and the will to become more than you are. That's when would you talent start being diminished, right? That was in Israel Hernández until I get into the Olympic Training Center. When I get in the Olympic Training Center, I passed the first 6 months, Hannah, crying. The training was so hard, was a lot of people were there. And in Cuba, you have to be the number one in order to compete outside the country.
Hmm.
One of the things is because those athletes see the sport as a venue to support the family, as a venue to have a better life. I came from the communist country, I came from third world country, that the sport was one of the avenue basically to have a better life.
Hmm.
So when you get there, those people see you as a threat. Those people see you, oh, Israel here, they want to get my position. No, they're going to kill you. They want to get on you. They're going to, it's no room to giving to you the my position now you're going to share with you. Is or you living or you die, or you stay here or you go home.
Wow.
But it was really hard for me the first 6 months. I cry every time I get out of the training. I go behind. There was a gymnastic gym after judo. I go behind it and I cry every single day. Right. I just remember my sister when I go to pick up for the training. My sister told me, "You don't come back here. You better do it good, but you don't come back here." And that was I was thinking of my sister, that told me I'm not going to come back. See the face of my dad, my mom, my family, see me going back and like that. It was hard for me, even though my family never go to tournament to see me. I never have any
Never. Okay.
member any tournament. It was so hard for them that they cannot go to tournament. They can watch the TV, they can see the news, but for them to go, they never went to tournament. The first tournament that I went, my dad was over there, and he said, "Hey, you go back home with a medal, but I'm not going to go inside with you. You get inside, get inside." That was the first tournament that I get second place. I had a medal, but in the training in the Olympic Training Center, Hannah, was hard. It was something that you had to be mentally prepared in order to be there. It was hard, not just in judo.
Hmm.
I had the privilege to leave the golden age of the Cuban sport, meaning every sport that I'm talking about, judo, wrestling, boxing, swimming. That was when Cuba get fifth place in the Olympic. Oh, and then to be there as a judo athlete, as a young athlete, be surrounding about any of those world medalists, not just in judo, in other sports. You go to the restaurant, in the restaurant, they're sitting over there with you, and you hear that conversation. They teaching you, you learn from them to how to become strong mentally, how to not move back even when the opponent is stronger than you. All those, I grew up with my 16, 17 years old. I've been surrounded about all those uh, Olympic and world medalists for different sport. That strengthened my mentality and helped me to grow,
Mhm.
at a young age as an athlete. So that was the first 6 months. I remember in November, I get inside by February, March in the Olympic Training Center. By November, the coach say, okay, we're going to do the tryout. The winner of the tryout, uh, we're going to Japan for 2 months, right? That was, for me, it was in my category, it was like 9 people. I was 55 kilo, then I was moving to 60 kilo. And I remember my coach say, hey, you want to go in the Samalio? And I say, I don't know what the Samalio is. Say the Beanos. I don't know what is that, coach. He said, this is the airplane.
Ah,
Eh,
okay, okay.
It's an airplane.
Yeah.
I say, if you want to get into the airplane to get out from Cuba, you better win this tryout. Because in Cuba, in the same time, in the Olympic Training Center, there is 14. And each team have a coach, you know. But we training together.
Mhm.
Basically, they're not. So Hannah, I win the tryout. It's a lot of funny story behind that.
Yeah, yeah. I wish we could do all your funny stories, but yeah, this is amazing.
The funny story was,
So this is how you first got into airplane. You won the
that was
tryouts
the first
and
time we did tryout.
you
That
got
was in
to,
November. That was in November.
wow.
We went to Japan for 2 months.
Mhm.
From Japan, we started doing the European circuit. Today they call it Grand Slam, Grand Prix, all the thing.
Yeah,
Back in the time, it wasn't like that. Was a Paris tournament, Bulgaria, Sofia. If we go to all those tournaments, right? When I was outside Cuba almost 5 months. When I go back to Cuba, I was something different. I was something else. It wasn't that I grew up too much in those 5 months outside Cuba. I developed my judo at a certain level. When I come back, I was 70 years old, 17, 18 years old when I come back. It was a lot of people, it wasn't 9 people,
mhm.
a lot of older than me and everything. I started Hannah basically playing those athletes. I throw everybody by point, easy, simple. Some athletes more harder than others, but I beat everybody. So the Olympic Training Center decided to only have me and 60 kilo and two other athletes. They kick out everybody older than 21 years old because I was so young that I was throwing all those people easy, easy, and no questioning. It was something in me that grew up
Yeah,
that my mentality changed in some way. I can read those athletes before they do the thing. I can see it. And that was easy for me. That was the beginning of Israel Hernández. That was when I come back. Cuba was totally different. And that was my first start international.
yeah.
Um, I started in Cuba first, but then that was translate basically the communication. Who am I in the international level? That was the how Israel Hernández started.
Wow, very, very interesting. And so how old were you when you competed in the first Olympics, 1992?
21 years old.
21, and you fought in 65 kilos.
55 kilo. It was hard. You know, Hannah, in Cuba, even if you qualify for the Olympic, they not allow you to Olympic if you don't have a potential to get medal. They don't care.
Mm-hmm.
They not spend money or going you want to go to Olympic just to go over there to tourists and say I'm an Olympian. No, they have to make sure that at least you are in the first fifth place, right? So all my career and my gold medal and all the things like that, Pan Am, all the things that wasn't 60 kilo. But I have a hard time making 60. Hannah, I weigh 73 kilo and I lose weight to 60.
Ugh, horrible. Yeah.
I almost died twice.
Yeah, I can imagine.
The last time, so finally my coach said, okay, we have to go to 65 kilo. That was in 1992. Cuba, in Japan I compete good, and the Choriki Cup was today they call it the Tokyo Grand Slam, and I fight good. I was in the I get fifth in the World Championship and all the things like that. So it was a magazine in Japan. They say who going to get medal in the Olympic. They put me in 60 kilo as an Olympic champion. Cuba know that. So they want to ensure that in 1992 I get gold medal in the Olympics. They're not allowing me to compete in 65 kilos.
Mm.
So that was a battle inside the Olympic Committee and my coach and the Cuban Federation because the Olympic Committee don't want to lose my medal in 65 and 60 kilos. They want me to 60 kilos. So they put big challenge on me. So I had to get 3 medals and 65 kilos before the Olympic in order to allow me to do that. My coach was concerned about my health. The federation say, hey, this guy almost died twice. You cannot
Yeah.
do that. So I take the challenge and I go to different tournaments in Europe and I get 2 gold medals. Then I go to in the Pan Am. I compete against Jimmy in the final. Jimmy get gold, I get silver, and then that was basically because Jimmy had been doing he get bronze in the previous world championship. When I get with Jimmy good fighting everything, Cuba say, okay, now we can allow him to go in 65 kilo, right? That's why I go to the Olympic and 65 kilo. But my category, it was 60 kilo. I never compete in 65 kilo in my whole career. It was basically, I would say, 3 or 4 months before the Olympic when I started
Wow.
competing.
And then you went to the Olympics and you got a medal, but like you kind of had like some pressure on you. You kind of had to medal, right? Like because
Yeah.
they were like you were the gold medal hope for 60 kilos, so you had to do something there and you did. So it's pretty amazing. I have to fast forward a little bit your past. Unfortunately, I know like you have like a great career and we talk about it probably for like 1 hour, but um did you went to the 1996 Olympics, you were bronze again. Did you stop your career after 1996? When did you
No, I continue.
finish?
I United States, I was upset not for my result, upset with the system in Cuba.
Mhm.
I started noticing things as I traveling everywhere. I see it's like different between capitalism and communism, right? So I studying from my young age. I started doing comparison. Well, I go into different countries and everything like that, but I start getting uh, ending my career as I don't want to be in this country because it's not future for me. I don't want to do that. So I kind of like start making. I have a good relationship with Spain. The president of the Olympic Committee today in Spain,
Mhm.
he was the president of the Spain Federation on those time. He kind of like my godfather, right? So he helped me after '96 to set up and moving to Spain with the justification that I went to train. So I started acting like I was depressed and all the things like that. But my goal was get out of Cuba.
Yeah.
So I went to Spain basically to train over there.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that idea. I want to move to Spain to live there, right? And to leave Cuba. So
Mhm.
Cuba started getting opposition, putting me back, compete to Cuba, go back to Spain until because they want me to get another third Olympic medal in Sydney
Mm.
in Australia 2000. But all those back and forth, they finally don't release me. Cuba cannot release me, and then I get upset and I decide not to compete anymore.
Yeah.
So I stay in Spain, then move to Puerto Rico, and then finally I get here to the
And
United
then you're in
States.
the USA. When did you reach the USA? Because I remember you, I
I
guess it was before two, like, because I was competing 57 kilos, like 2005, six, seven. Yeah, you were there. I remember you were there.
was I come after the Olympic 2004 to 2004. I was Olympic coach for Puerto Rico. After the Olympics, Puerto Rico doing really good, not in the Olympic, but in the Pan level, they're doing really good. So, one thing I always say, I had to thank, Eddie Leary, Jimmy Pedro, uh, Jason Murray, I would say,
Mhm.
Johnny Prado. Those people, you know, Jose Humberto Rodriguez, after the Olympic in 2004, because the relationship that I have with them, basically, Eddie Leary approached me to come here and to do Olympic, not Olympic coach, for U.S. national coach from 2004 to 2008. That
Mm.
why when I came to United States, Eddie
Yeah.
Leary, Roberto Rodriguez approached me. That when I came to, it was training site in Texas.
Texas, I remember. Arlington. Yeah.
Yeah, that's when I started getting
Yeah.
into the state.
Yeah. So now you've been in the USA for a long time, coaching for a long time. So your love for judo, kind of just naturally, went from you just like really naturally went from like athlete to coach. Like it was just a nice little progress there. And now so let's talk about, the main thing we want to talk about today, which is the USA Judo National Resident Team, which you are, head coach now for I'm going to say a year. You were hired last year. You were named head coach of the program that's in Charlotte, North Carolina. And yeah, you've been in this role for 1 year. So can you explain to me what the National Resident Program is?
Yeah, National President Program is a program associated with USA Judo. It's a basically like remember the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs,
Hmm.
right? That's basically what they do. Where we have uh, a lot of athletes from the nation that can go over there, they can live over there, they can train. They have a nutrition, they have psychology, they have a personal training, they have a judo coach. They have everything basically the same as an Olympic Training Center. So the government of North Carolina is the support the program, right? They give him funding and all the things like that. That's the national wrestling side right now. That's what it is. There's a lot of talented athlete over there, but this is what it
Yeah,
is.
this is what it is. Yeah. And so you've been there for 1 year. So can you tell me, since you started and now today we are in 2026, February 2026, how has the program progressed since you've been brought on board?
I have a farm life, for since 2010. All the thing I do judo. Judo fanatic with Jimmy. Then I go into American judo system and all the thing like that. That was the way I was doing judo. I have my judo club in California and all the thing that I was doing judo outside from coaching and competition. Right, I want to approach and teach judo in different way.
Hmm.
Right, it wasn't to 2, 3 years ago that I see the USA Judo result going down. That intrigued me. I want to know why. I want to get involved in the progress, to develop those athletes. They have a lot of young kids with a lot of talents. I want to get involved like that. I start going to training camp and other things like that, running training camp with USA Judo, call me,
Yeah.
Jimmy, and give me okay, Israel, teach that, do all the things, a really approach like that. So I want to get involved in judo again in order to develop that new generation judo player in the United States they have everything, but something it was missing, right? I get in the place. So it was last year. I was in a training camp, and it was like that. It was some situation there. I don't want to go into the detail. So, and then USA Judo basically really approached me and said, "Hey, we have this position open. There is you want to apply, you are interested." I said, "Of course, I want to apply." Go, what is the process? You have to do that. They're going to interview you, and you pass the interviews. Everybody wants you, so you get the position. That was like that. But the thing that moved me into giving back for this young generation, something that I passed.
Mm-hmm.
I already passed. Yeah, my history is past, but the way to become a champion, I think I had to transmit, I had to put him back into the new generation. That's why this is my main, the engine that moved me today is send a message to these kids, help them to get the result that that many of them deserve. In other one that they can see how judo can help you in your life in the future. That was that moved me come back to.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, since you've been in judo for a really long time, and now you're coaching this new generation of athletes, but it's a lot, the sport changed a lot, right?
Yeah.
Since you were you were competing. So what changes have you had to make, as a coach to like adapt to the new generation of judo? Judo is like a lot harder now. There's so many more countries doing judo. The level has risen so high. So yeah, like the standard's
There is
higher. It's difficult.
and there is three things that as a judo athlete you have to understand, right? And maybe that's what I today for 1 year I doesn't looking for result in that place. What I'm looking for is to improve three things that any champion, any judo level, I would say at the highest level they have. Number one, they're got competitive character. Number two is they call into competitive initiative or competitive identity. In number three at the highest level, they call it competitive perception or competitive presence. When I talk about competitive character, I hear a lot of many of the athletes, right? They tell me, "Okay, coach, I want to go to this tournament and this, that, to see if I have an easy fight." That me show me this athlete don't have competitive character, right? When you go to tournament to find out is it you have an easy fight, no, there is no easy fight in judo. If there is one, maybe you are the easy fight for your opponent. So that have to change the 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 mentality. That's what I see lack of our athlete today in the United States, right? There had to be a reconstructing of the sport character or the competitive character for the athlete. In the judo international level, at the highest level, you cannot training to motivation. You have to have a discipline. If you rely on you character and motivation, you're going to fail because motivation go up and down. Discipline is the only way and give you the way to go into the you want. So I would say I have a couple of notes here, like to explain better. When you have a competitive character, you have to have a self control.
Yeah.
You have to have a good response in front of the frustration. You have to tolerate pain and fatigue.
Yeah.
You have to understand and to be persistent in golden score. You have to basically have a confident and you tactical under pressure, right? It doesn't matter your opponent hard or you have a bad referee. Those things help you to develop the competitive character. And the competitive character is not developed by talking, it's by training, right? You have to basically repeat the same thing, you technique, you tactic, and reinforce that. Because I say a lot of athletes, Hannah, that training one technique and when they compete, they do another thing. That is something that is is missing. That's why you have to understand how that work. Okay, when you have karate, you have the first grip. You don't retreat. You continue. I would say under pressure. You attack. You are there. That when you have a karate. Now if you doubt, right? If you get a mental block under the pressure or frustration, or you wait too much to do the attack, that's a lack of character. Is that all the thing that I want to basically uh, give into the new generation athlete? We
Yeah.
have athletes that have it all, right? That have that character, and then you have it. If you don't have it, some part of that could be trainable, right? You can do a lot of uchi coming on the pressure. You have to do randori in this way. There's a lot of way that you can basically develop that character, but you
Mhm.
have to have a character. They call it competitive character. That gives you the way to do to different level. They calling, I would say, you calling competitive initiative or competitive identity. That's another part that I want to develop in a young athlete because competitive initiative, the initiative win fight, right?
Yeah.
But you have to have identity. And when you what identifies you as an athlete? So that my question, I have a question to all the athletes, because when the athlete have a lack of initiative or lack of identity, they think, right? Uh, I'm going to lose. I have afraid to lose. They have it too much down. And I ask them, what is worse? Fail attacking or lose by waiting? For me, I prefer fail attacking.
Hmm. Yeah.
Lose when waiting, that's when something uh, get me as a coach because you have to be, you are in the fighting sport, so the initial mentality is basically take the first step. That had to be automatic. You know, the fake grip had to be dominant. You had to attack without necessity or confirmation that what is it. No, because there's no other way. And decision had to be before doubt. You had to decide. That's an initiative. If you do not decide those key moment, there's a key moment in judo that you have to decide. There's no other way. You start doubting, we're going to find a way to
You'll never, like, if you start doubting, you will. It's
you
very hard to
you
win like this. Yeah. Yeah.
so when you install those things in the mind of the team, you change the culture of the athlete. If that's what we need to do, if that's what I'm working over there, is
Hmm.
to change the culture because many of I remember being in I would say Jimmy, Pedro, Eddie, Jason Morris, Mike Swain. Uh, I would say there's a lot of athletes, Ronda Rossi, Kayla Harrison, Travis Steven.
Hmm.
Those people, they have character,
Hmm.
they have initiative, mental initiative. They have basically what I call it identity.
Yeah.
You know, when they compete, that's where we struggle today in our team.
Mhm.
That's one of the main goal that I'm looking for. It's not just for my athlete, it's for the whole country. We have to change the culture that they can see themselves, identify that they strong. They can handle the strong fight and everything. So when you see an athlete that 70% of the time they initiate to get the grit to compete, to fight and everything, they attack before 15 seconds without you as a coach tell them to attack. You know, when you see less Chilo, when you I say well they go to score, they don't step back. They go forward because they have to decide. You know, they not look to the referee to looking for that decision. You know, every match they look at the referee. When you don't see that, that win matches.
Yeah.
That's when you start seeing, and the athlete, I would say, that it is when you say those, when you see those identities as an athlete, you know. So what when when the athlete had identity, they had to ask themselves, who I am when I compete? Who am I in this fight? That is identity. If you have to identify as an athlete who you are in the fight. You are the winner, you are the attacking, you are the first to attack, you are the person who put pressure, you are the person to initiate, you are the person to decide who wins. That is when the athlete had that initiative, you know. But before the athlete tried to find why my initiative, why my identity, they had to ask themselves something in you know. So do I have do I fear to lose? You have to, in order to work on those things and to develop, you have to question in yourself because sometimes we don't see ourselves as an athlete. If we don't see ourselves, you don't question it. When you question yourself, three basic questions: do I fear to lose? Right? Do I fear to do mistake? Or I waiting the perfect moment?
Yeah. This
This
is
question
yeah.
leads you to something different. When you afraid to lose, you compete to protect you.
Yeah, like you don't fight open. I felt like this towards the end of my career, like afraid to lose or just like just I wasn't open, like you feel like your judo is closed down, right? You can't fight free. Like it's a horrible feeling.
The horrible feeling. And you
Yeah.
have it when they say you have afraid to do mistake. What you
Mhm.
do, you don't want to fail, so you don't attack.
Yeah, exactly.
You
Yeah.
attack minimum, right? Because you don't want to do the dumb mistake. And then they're looking for the perfect moment. And I told the message for every athlete: there is no
There's
perfect
no
moment in you. There's not,
Yeah.
right? So that what I told my athlete. Okay, what do you prefer? Do the perfect technique in the wrong moment or the wrong technique on the perfect moment? You understand that? So
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
are the question. For me, I prefer do the wrong technique at the right time, right? Because you don't want to. You're looking for that perfect moment. There is no perfect moment in any category, in any time in Europe. You're not going to find the perfect moment. You have to understand to identify yourself to compete with pressure, to decide, to attack when you feel uncomfortable, to
Yeah.
attack when you feel in threat under pressure. You have to do that. So I told the athlete to, I'm not punish the mistake because in judo you're allowed to do mistake. You're going to do mistake. You know, I will punish when you waiting. When
Yeah.
you waiting and waiting. because I do prefer fail and lose attacking than lose by waiting.
Yeah.
When you wait, you are cheated. And then you send that message to the referee wants to finish that fight as
Oh
quickly as he
yeah,
can.
for sure.
No,
They're like, move on. We don't want to
it's
watch this
boring.
anymore.
Para que Chino again, Yuko, or sometimes they say Pong too because they want to finish that fight.
Now they just call Yuko because it's so easy to call Yuko now. Like, okay,
Exactly.
a little bit there. Okay, Yuko. So,
And for me, I would say, you never will lose my respect for attack.
yeah, for
When
trying, right? For trying.
fight,
Yeah,
you're not going to lose my
yeah,
respect. But you will lose in my respect when you lose weight.
yeah,
The identity of the athlete, the competitive identity is that identity take time to
yeah,
develop, in the athlete, but it's stable. When you develop the identity in the athlete, it's stable. The athlete not going to look at referee. They're not going to retreat on the pressure. They're not going to waiting for the attack. They're going to do things even when you don't ask it. They're going to be creative. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to have
yeah, and
ultimate
show confidence, right? Yeah, and this is
because you
important.
accept the
Yeah,
mistake. You're not perfect. You're going to that mentality, that identity mentality is going to uh you're going to win a change in the
yeah,
future. You're going to win a change. You're going to the competitive identity win tight fight. The fight like that, you have the identity, those moments you're going to win the fight. And the competitive identity win big tournaments.
yeah,
That is something that I want to basically uh, uh, the athlete to understand uh, what is the identity. Who am I when I attack? You have to attack first. You not retreat. You even on the and golden score on the pressure. You are the first. You are the ones to compete to fight. You decide even when you fail. There's a lot of things that, and then you are attacking without permission, that I say. When the athlete is waiting for the coach, okay, you have to attack and waiting for permission or waiting for your opponent giving to you the opportunity, the perfect time, you asking for permission.
yeah,
When you have identity, you don't ask for permission. You go there to do. In this athlete, when you develop those on the athlete, we're talking about identity conversion. Yeah, identity conversion reduce doubt on the athlete because you become something else. That happened to me. Remember when I was in Japan for 2 months, then I go to Europe. When I go to Cuba, I have was something different. I identify myself and to say, you know what, I'm the best here.
yeah,
The others 9 people, I'm the best because I went to Europe, I fight with this guy, I am the best. You compete without fear. You not only change the character. When you compete without fear, you don't change the character of the athlete. You change the identity and initiative of the athlete. That when you have character, when you have an initiative competitive, an identity competitive, now we go to the highest level. In the higher level is the way your opponent perceives you. This is what I call it competitive perception.
hmm
Now I want you to ask you a question. How do you want your opponent see you? As a nice girl, good
I want them
judo.
to be scared of me.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's me
That's
though.
what I'm talking about. You want your opponent see you as a threat.
I want them to
You
be like,
want
she's the strongest girl I ever fought in my
that,
life.
that's what you call it competitive perception or competitive presence. Your opponent have to see you as a threat, as a dangerous athlete.
Yeah.
They have to notice it that you are in the tournament. When they see the draw, they say, "Oh my God, Hannah is in my side."
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
that's this. That's what I. what I told the athlete, you have to have something else they call it competitive precision. When the athlete give it all on the fight, they take the grip, they attack first, and the opponent they not retreat, they go after they fail, they go and continue fighting, and they not look down, and the referee decision, everything like that. That's when you are present.
Yeah.
You sending a message to like that. I have a conversation with Travis one day, and he say, hey, Israel, you know what I like the most? When I compete, I had to put a mental block in my opponents. If this the way, he told me the same thing, the different way. When you put a mental block onto your opponent, you send a message. I'm here. I'm here.
Yeah.
You want to beat me, you have to show me that you're better than me. I'm here. I'm in your presence. I'm right here. This is competitive perception. The way they perceive you. Of course, when you develop those things, right, immediately your opponent going to see you as a threat, and they're going to start feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah. And then
Because
then
this
they
is
start respecting you a little bit, on the mat. It's a physical fight, but also a psychological fight. It's like, and I can see you're, trying to instill this like philosophy, this mindset with the new generation of athletes that you're working with. So, and this is
because,
like really important.
I was in Africa, in Tunisia, and I see a lot of. I respect all those countries, right? But I see the level in our judo level for every athlete in the United States is a way higher than the people that go to that tournament in Africa. It is, with some exception, right? But we see ourselves below them, or we see ourselves at the same level. There is a message that you send it to the athlete, to your opponent. So the opponent had to see you when they compete with you. They cannot say, no, this guy did not come here to survive. They come here to impose. They come here to win the fight. They come here to have a present. And they come here, they come here to get medal, not to survive. When you go to the tournament to survive, right? That's it. You don't have it that present. You don't have the perception, the way they see you, that's the way it is. Like I say, there is some athlete here, like I say, yeah, UNESCO, Jonathan Jam, Christopher Velasco, Didi, I would say, Johan Silo. I would say I can mention Kobe. I'm sorry for those one those athletes. Every tournament they go, their opponent fit their present. They see them as a threat. But I want everybody, we as a team, when we go to tournament, they say, okay, USA team is here.
It's like when Japan shows up. Oh no, Japan is here.
You
But
understand
we
that?
have to have this kind of like presence. And I think for a long time, the USA in general felt like we're like the underdogs. We're poor us, poor USA. We're like, you know, this is like I think the mentality a lot of the athletes like brought upon themselves, and this is like still going on, this mentality,
Yeah,
and it's very difficult
I,
to
I never see that when Jimmy, with Eddie, with Jason, with
yeah.
Travis, with Mike Swain, with Rhonda, with Kayla, with a lot of you don't see that, right? People they feel it. They're here.
Yeah.
That's the present. And then that's something that you have to have, because when you have those things, you change heroes, referee decision. Uh, the body language of your opponent change. You know, and when that happens, you will see more attack from your athlete. You will see less hero. You're going to see your opponent, the real response for the attacking. You will see less lost.
At end of the day, more medals for
You know
USA.
what? That and then you have to see a higher competitive result.
Yeah.
You create a competitive present for the athlete. You understand that? It is something that I'm working with my athlete. Like I say, it's not only because I I think for the group of people that we're working, Eddie Liri, Jimmy Pedro, Herman Velasco, Cotton Brown, and myself, we're working with this athlete to show them they don't want we don't want they become like us, but we have to show them the road,
The road. Yeah.
way to become and to have what they deserve because they have it, they have the talent. You know, they have everything, and they have everything better than we have. Because I came from the third world country, I don't have too much. I remember United States team, and sleeping in some way in Japan because we don't have what we have. We have it. They don't have economical support. They
Yeah.
don't have. They have something. They have something. They have a team. USA team, and those times they compete hard to die. To die, you have to kill them. And we had that today, but we had to show the athlete how to get there. You
Yeah.
know,
Guide.
so
Yes.
so those three things that I say it to reconstruction of a mentality on an athlete. We had to have competitive character. We had to have competitive identity and competitive initiative. At the highest level, we had to have a competitive perception.
Coach
The
percent. Yeah.
present,
Yeah.
the mindset is the way it is. And I told the athlete, you have to put at the highest level, you have to put a mental block to your opponent in order
Yeah.
to do that. Because the champion, the champion, they not respect too much the good techniques, right? They respect the fighter, the athlete. They have no doubt. The athlete going to attack no matter if you are a champion or not.
Hmm.
You are be among the best is different to be the best. That's something that through my time. But when I see that, I wasn't doing judo anymore.
Yeah.
I was outside of the
A
competition.
different, you have a different mindset outside
That's
of
why
that.
you see a
Yeah.
lot of comeback of that. That's why when Jimmy win the war, and then he get out, and then he come back because he said, no, no, no,
Mhm.
something missing. I'm the best.
Yeah.
That's why those big guys get out from the retirement, not because they have something in them that moved them, that made them be different. It does today where Israel Hernández working with USA team to create in this generation those three main aspects that make the difference. They bring big medal to the country. It's competitive character, competitive identity, and competitive perception. That's it, basically, Hannah, what I want to say.
Yeah.
For
Poor thing. Can you tell, the ones, athletes and people that are listening, how do you apply to be part of the National Resident Team program?
So you have to submit an application. You go to USA Judo website. There is in the bottom side. There is a link that you put over there. You're going to have a form. You have to sign up, fill out that form, send it to USA Judo for review. Then they send it to me. I review it again, and then I decide to have accepting the athlete in the program or not.
Thank
Okay.
you for that. But
Simple,
Israel,
but
really, like I think we have to do like a part two because there's, I have so many more questions.
anytime,
It was
anytime.
really awesome to speak with you and like hear about like your, mindset and how you're, working with the new generation and, we're working for the future, LA 2028 is coming soon. So
Yes, but it's right there.
it's right here. I know. So
The door is right there behind the door.
yeah, so exactly. So it's knocking at the door faster than we think, and yeah, we have to be ready. So and you're helping the Team USA get there. So we really appreciate it. So Israel, thank you for your time, and yeah, I'm sure we'll talk again, and I'll see you somewhere on the road, right?
Hey, thank you so much, Hannah, for the invitation. Anytime you can contact me again, we can have a more interview. Okay, but
Perfect.
thank you, USA Judo, for giving me this opportunity, and thank you for those athletes that allow me you know, the athlete and their coach to allow me to teach them and coaching them in some moment.
And
Okay.
they're very, very lucky to have you, honestly. So
Okay.